Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will not add on what my Jaja has said, but as usual, when we are starting this program, we request ourselves. I know you came for seeking for knowledge, but we remind you that please purify the niyyah so that you get the rewards of people who sit in the mosque for the sake of seeking knowledge. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he tells us many things that we get out of sitting here for the sake of knowledge, but out of them that I want to mention at the end of the program, the sitting, the Malaika say in Twaliku Magufuri that please, whoever has been here, go knowing that Allah has forgiven you. Let us prepare to get those rewards. And by that, let me hand over my son.
Thank you, Doctor. May Allah reward you abundantly. Allahumma Ameen. I think we may not take any other time doing anything else except starting. We shall have a doctor read, and then a question read, then doctor will answer, then we shall have a comment from Mr. Hamza. The question says, when are we allowed to end life of someone in Islam?
Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa ba'd. The question is from the fiqh point of view, and alhamdulillah, our ulama have tackled it from different angles. But the which is asking, when are we allowed to end somebody's life? Quickly, I will say we are not allowed. We are not allowed to kill someone. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said in one hadith, Umirtu an uqatila an-nasa hatta yashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anni Rasulullah. فَإِذَا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ عَصَمُوا مِنِّي دِمَاءَهُمْ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. That Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was ordered to invite, to call people to say La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, to testify that there is no God worthy to be worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whoever does that, he has protected him or herself from being fault. Also, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as you all know, was participating in some of the wars between the Muslims and non-believers in Mecca and elsewhere. But in one of those wars, where he did not participate himself, the Sahaba went following someone because it is a war. They wanted, of course, he wanted to kill them, and they wanted to kill him, until they found him in a manner that he cannot, by all means, fight them. And then he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. But because of the anger these people had, they went ahead and they killed him. When they killed him, and of course some of them felt that has been killed wrongly after saying Shahada. Then when they came to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they narrated the story to him. And of course, it was after the revelation of one of the ayah. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked them, why did you kill him? After saying, La ilaha illallah. They said, he said it for fear to be killed. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked them, especially the one who killed him, Ashakakta qalbahu? Did you have a way of knowing that he said it for the fear to be killed? Did you have any way of knowing it? And he kept repeating that one, to show that he was blaming the one who killed someone after saying La ilaha illallah. What do we get out of all those ones? Islam, one of the objectives of Islam is to protect people's lives. It is important in Islam to protect someone's life, be a Muslim or a non-Muslim. We are not allowed to kill each other until one of the things that are being mentioned by the scholars happens. One, if someone kills somebody else intentionally and is being taken to court, and the judge comes out clearly that this person killed the other one intentionally, therefore he has to be killed. In that case, we are allowed, or the government, the people in authority are allowed to kill that person who has killed somebody else. But not that everybody is allowed to do so. It is being done after the judge comes out clearly and declare that this person was killed intentionally, therefore even the killer has to be killed. That is one. Number two, scholars said that if someone who has been saying it, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, then backslams, then becomes a non-Muslim. They said that such a person is also allowed to be killed, basing on one of the hadiths of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, that situation is being discussed in many books of jurisprudence, and some of them they said is not killed because it is not mentioned in any of the verses of the Quran, and they give many reasons. But why, for those ones who say that he has to be killed, why should he be killed? Let us look at our governments. Suppose somebody enters into an army, and then after a while he decides to leave the army, not officially, that he just runs away and go. What happens? They look for him for fear that this person might be knowing a lot, might be having a lot of secrets of ours, and therefore they have to, many of them, they are being killed. But sincerely, Islam was brought to protect. One of the objectives is to protect life and protect families. Therefore, we are not allowed to kill or to end somebody's life except when there is a very big reason that allows us to do so. Wallahu a'lam.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will be very brief in the interest of time. The doctor has given an elaborate answer. I'm just adding on a few comments. I advise you to master what we call the Maqasid Sharia. The Maqasid Sharia are the essence, the reason as to why we have all these laws that we have within the Sharia. So the Sharia is designed to protect 5 core things about the human being. The first one is life. No, they start with religion. The first one is religion, meaning the laws that we see are to protect your religion so that you stay on the right religion. The second one is life, protection of life. So all the rules and etc. that you see are designed to protect life. The third one is intellect. That's why it's prohibited to take alcohol, to take drugs, etc. Anything that changes you from a state of being intelligent and able to understand and it puts you away, we prohibit it because it takes away your capacity to make judgment. Then the fourth one is lineage, your family line. That's why we don't allow things like adoption, full adoption, where the person changes even the name and etc. All those are designed to protect lineage, and finally, the protection of property. So those 5 things, they form the essence of the deen. So even if you may not find a mufti to give you some fatwa like what the panel is doing here, if you know those 5 things, you can easily make a fatwa for yourself. Anything that injures any of those 5 things becomes something of a problem. Regarding people that qualify to be killed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like he has said, has already commanded us, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. So the haqq that is talked about, one is a person that has killed another. And there is a reason as to why there is that law. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ hayat. When a person is killed after killing another, it helps to save life. How does it save life? It removes the burden of revenge. Because whenever people have one of their relatives killed, the thing that comes to their mind is revenge. So if we can have this person punished, then it removes the need for revenge. Then secondly, it also scares away the ones that were planning to kill people. Because if you see a person that has killed another and is also executed, then you lose interest in that activity. So that is the first one. The second one is in a case a person is a married person and he goes ahead and performs fornication. That person is also supposed to be killed. And when we are talking of killing, we don't mean that this is some dirty person that we are removing from society. No, it is a chance for this person to repent and go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without the burden of that major sin. Then the third one is, of course, what he talked about, the issue of one that leaves religion, but the majority now discard that as not a principal reason for killing a person. But if you look at the language that was used in asking, the person was saying, when is it permissible to take a person's life? It is as if he was looking at what we call mass killing. For example, a person is in stage 10 of cancer. We are 100% sure within the next 1 month they will die. We are 100% sure there is no medicine for that drug, for that disease, and the person is suffering every day and night. So I got that kind of interpretation from the language in the question. So are we permitted to help that person end their life so that they don't go on suffering? So in case the question was meant to address that kind of issue, we are not permitted to end life because of the reason of pain. One, because already the Sharia exists to protect life. Then two, there is a solution to pain. You can have painkillers and etc., but we are not permitted to stop the life of a person just because we think that the person will not die. Our brother Hussein Chanjo later died, but by the time he died, he had bypassed the lifetimes he had been given more than 3 times. They told him, you are now remaining with 6 months. He cruised 2 years. By the time he died, they had given him 2 weeks, but he has moved 3 months. So you don't have capacity to say, now this one, since he's remaining with 1 week, why don't we summarize it now? And he goes, no. That 1 week he can add on more istighfar and a few other things. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you very much for those suiting answers. Allow me welcome Sheikh Hussein Ali Bulaf, who have joined us. You're welcome, Sheikh. He will give us his opening remarks and later answer the question that goes, is it allowed to call your partner daddy or mommy? And please put more light on masturbation.
الله وبركاته Mahmuduhu Allah wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dahu wa ba'd. Before I start answering to the question, allow me take this opportunity to thank my parents, my seniors, my lecturers, Dr. Sulait Kabali and Sheikh Sekalema Hamza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them in abundance. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them a blessing of never lacking. Allahumma ameen. Is it allowed to call your partner mommy and daddy? When you ask such a question, Islamically, the mind goes to what we call dhihar, the concept of dhihar. In the pre-Islamic period, the so-called Jahiliyyah period, they had it as one of the ways that clarified the termination of marriage. So basically, a husband would say a statement like, Anti alayya ka dhahri ummi, basically meaning, my wife, I'm just now considering you as my mother. And they made it a point to say a mother or a sister, or maybe to specify a part of a body onto someone who is haram onto them. By then it was a statement used to terminate marriage. When Islam came, to them it made sense that when they say such, daddy and mommy to them, like they hate you to the level that they can't do anything with you, because in first place, they can't indulge with you biologically. You know what I mean when I say biologically. I don't want to be vulgar. They don't have anything. They don't want to do anything with you in that line, just like they are just seeing you as a father and maybe as a mother. So in the Jahiliyyah period, it is known as dhihar, where a couple used that style to terminate their marriage. So now, here comes a challenge. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam came, he never respected that concept of dhihar as a kind of divorce. But he indeed categorized it separately with other specific verdicts under the same concept of dhihar. And we get this from the story that happened between a companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, known as Aus bin Samit, and his wife known as Khawla. One day, Aus bin Samit, an authentic tradition narrated to us by Aisha in Bukhari. The wife to Aus bin Samit narrates that one day her husband was unpleased with her. And at the 11th hour, at the end of the argument, the husband was like, you're just like my mother. I don't want to do anything with you anymore. So basically, he made it a point to use the same specific statements, positioning his wife as a mother. Yet they all know that in Jahiliyyah, they respected that statement in a way of terminating marriage. So when Khawla received that statement, definitely he marched to the Prophet. Not actually before marching to the Prophet, in the evening when Aus came back, he started trying to now demand for biology from the wife. And then the wife was like, no, we won't do anything, not until we request for a verdict. What you did in the morning was this and this. We don't know our stand right now. I don't even know whether I'm still your husband or whether I'm still your wife or not. They marched to the Prophet. And guess what? By the time Khawla marched to the Prophet never had an answer. But then Allah answered using Quranic verses. Surah Al-Mujadila. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Allah was like, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Allah has had the conversation that Khawla had in first place with the husband, And Allah is also in the know with the reality that Khawla has marched to the Prophet seeking for the Islamic guidance. Why? It's because she was positioned as a mother in that angle. Wallahu yasma'u tahawurakuma inna Allaha sami'un basir. But what I wanted is the Islamic approach in line with this whole concept of dihar. It never respected it as a kind of divorce in particular, but there is a caution and a limit for us believers today. If you ever call your wife mommy, or maybe your wife ever calls you daddy, as a result of maybe probably positioning you in that dignity, in that position, as a result of wrath and argument, then probably you might enter into the concept of dihar. And guess what? There is what we call kafara in the same verses after the first and second verse, where Allah was like, whoever is a victim in actually positioning their spouses, positioning them into the levels of people who are actually prohibited for them to indulge with sexually, what are they supposed to do? فَتَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ. The first option is you free a slave. But of course, we don't have slaves today. We are not in the era of slavery, because it's not applicable today. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ. If at all you're not in position, you can't free a slave, just like we are right now, there are no slaves, then the second option is فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. Fasting 2 consecutive months. Chikugwem. The discipline is you position your spouse where they belong. You don't exaggerate them. If at all you can't do that, probably for some reason, then the last option is what? فَإِطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا. Then consider feeding 60 needy people. Why is Allah putting all these steps? I want us to appreciate the reality today. Maybe the one who asked the question wasn't actually having this in mind. I want to appreciate the reality that probably it's as a result of love. They love each other. Now this man of ours, just because his mom died, and now this wife is basically doing whatever his mom normally used to do, and then he's like, my mother, you're my mommy. And now the same applies with this lady. Just because she's an orphan, the dad died, and then she's basically calling you a dad because probably you're providing here and there. But we want to respect the reality that the sensitivity of the matter is going to force us to actually limit our married couple not to exceed that limit. After all, we are going to ask you, really, are you too inactive and uncreative to the level you can't even get other names other than mommy and daddy? Do you want to tell us that you've checked your dictionary? There is nothing you're having other than mommy and daddy? Of course, there are some other names. You just have to respect your parents in a way. There is nothing your spouse is going to do that is equivalent with what your parents that did actually. You're not allowed to even position them like that. Actually, in the interest of time, allow me, if I get to the masturbation bit, I normally tell this to my students. There is a thin line between complimenting you and actually, the Baganda call it kuchina. I don't know the English word that is used to mean kuchina. When someone is throwing a compliment to you, you have to really be active. Make sure it is not an abuse in the long run. Yes, but just because we are obsessed of being positioned where we don't belong, you're not a daddy to anyone. You just have to give birth to someone who is going to call you daddy. The same applies with the sisters. But now there is another scenario, a dynamic, where a married couple is going to use mommy and daddy as a kind of teaching their born kid, a young one, to teach them how they call each other. We are using daddy and mommy, but there is also tata, mama, papa, mai in different local languages. So you will find a couple that will be like, no, I'm not basically trying to call him daddy in the concept of the har or whatever, but I just want to teach my kid that probably if at all the kid is 1 year, 2 years, they would now learn to call their father tata because they always hear their mother calling him tata. You understand the point now? So when we get to that angle, scholars were like, if at all it is in line with teaching and tutoring this kid to get to learn how they call their parents, then well and good. You can basically use it, not until they learn how to call them. After all, if at all you call your husband boo, and then your kid is 1 year, this boy is going to start calling his father boo also, because this mother is busy calling the daddy boo. So you have to also consider that dynamic too. And that's why this whole concept of calling daddy and mommy, in conclusion, it's really sensitive in Islam, and I don't see any need in actually positioning someone in that angle. Yeah, you just have to position them. What will happen when you divorce? What will happen when you're supplicating for your dad who died? Won't the angels get confused? Who is the father you're relating to? Is it the one who is still alive, or is the one who is now dead? And then lastly, Islam prohibits masturbation. It is not allowed in Islam. And I want to use the verse in Surah Al-Mu'minun, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually gave a nice attribute to the believers, and he was like, وَالَّذِينَ, those who are actually sensitive at guarding, لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ, they guard their private parts, not to indulge in haram activities. And towards, in some other verse, Allah was like, whoever uses their private parts in an illegal way, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ, those are the real transgressors. Do you really want us to take you through the effects of you masturbating? Youth of today, it is sensitive in a way that you're playing with yourself, and whoever is going to be a victim of your masturbating is whoever is going to get married to you. It's the same situation with someone who is a porn addict. You're training your mind psychologically that you're going to watch whatever you're watching, you're going to do whatever you're doing for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, until you get to the level you want. But the one question is, you're far away from what we call reality. So you will only have one option. You don't even know whoever you're going to get married to. And these are some of the bad effects of masturbation and the bad effects of indulging in those immoral acts. So we really have to stick with the Islamic guidance. There is no need for you to switch to masturbation. If you really have a lot of desires, Islam guided you. Fast. If at all you're fasting and the desires are still there, you marry. God is basically training you that you're fit for marriage. You're dodging and you're looking for other solutions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that guidance. But the Islamic ruling is very clear. You don't use your private parts, you're only allowed to use them onto your spouses, your wives and your husbands, and in the right way. You're not even allowed to use them yourself. Yes. Wallahu a'lam bisawab. Barakallahu fikum. Maybe my seniors have something to...
Let me just add one issue about masturbation. Now you realize that for human beings to have sex is essentially a form of entertainment for human beings. By the way, we are the only creatures that use sex for entertainment. The others only use it for procreation, producing others. So you can't find them having sex for entertainment. For them, it's not. is we who have for entertainment. And it is driven by what I will call a software and a hardware. The software is mental, and the hardware are the physical private parts that we use. Now, that software has a process. For the men, the software begins by detecting an attractive female. Then this process starts from there, meaning there must be a physical female in front of you. That's the natural way. For the women, it usually involves physical aspects like touch or etc. Now, for the man, if you remove the existence of a physical female being and you replace with that imaginary one in your head, you are creating a very big problem. A time comes when you marry one of these ladies and she will stand in front of you. But remember, for you have changed your system. It's no longer detecting these targets that are in front of you. For it wants the unreal one, which is in the head. So even if the person undresses, your system is not even able to detect because it does not regard that as a target. For it expects something imaginary. So in most cases, you will find the victims of masturbation tend to end up with a very low realistic sexual drive because their system has been severely distorted. It's a very bad psychological effect that would totally distort your marriage life for a very long time. So please avoid it. It has very big psychological effects that are on the negative side, apart from the fact that Allah has made it haram. Remember, every rule that you see in Islam is protecting you against one of the bad effects that we saw. Now,
Thank you very much. We shall now go to a question which shall be answered by Dr. Kabali Sulaid, which goes, if a person appears to a person in a dream or spiritual form, asking to sacrifice for him or her a goat, is it allowed in Islam? If one appears to the other in a dream or any forms in spiritual ways, asking the latter to sacrifice for them a goat, is it allowed in Islam?
My thinking of doing this fatwa correctly, let me start with that. We should get questions touching one aspect, and we conclude that one. But now we go here, we go there, and so on, and we go out of this place, either confused or understanding more. Now this one comes to Tawheed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. That ayah talks about slaughtering. That's what I wanted from there. And he says, all that one should be done for the sake of Allah. When you want to appreciate Allah, that is when you should be, that's when you are allowed to slaughter. But in case of someone, any dream, say your mom, your dad, who passed away so long time, comes to you and say, my son, I'm really in a bad situation where I am. And it is only you who can rescue me from that by slaughtering a goat, by slaughtering a cow, and so on. It is haram. It is haram to do it even if you slaughtered a fly, not a goat. Even if you slaughter a fly, that one is haram before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is a form of shirki which we are not allowed to perform in Islam. However, I think the person who asked this, and I don't know why my son has directed it to me, he must have heard me in one of the speeches talking about when is allowed to take an order from a person who died. There are certain things that we can do, but it does not touch the slaughtering of anything for the sake of the dead person or so. But suppose somebody who died appears to you in a dream and say, my son, I had a property of so and so, and I kept it in this place, and no one knows except me. Can you go to that place and remove it and go and have it, take it to the person I have described? That one, there are a lot of things which can be said. I want to remain specific on that one, that we are not allowed to slaughter anything for the sake of anybody else. We only slaughter for Allah alone, basing on that ayah of the Quran. Wallahu a'lam.
Just a small comment. The doctor has rotated mainly around the focus of the question, which was slaughtering. But we should expand it to include anything about being given some kind of order by a dead person. Now, in the hadith, it is very clear that إِذَا مَاتَ ibn Adam inqata'a amalihi. So there is no way a dead person can again continue doing activities on earth. So an intelligent person will ask you, so who is now bringing the dream? For me, I saw my father's image. That dream is brought about by a jinn. Every one of us is born with a jinn. That jinn, I think it's called Karin. Now, that jinn does not die with you. For you, you die, and the Karin will stay around. And that Karin knows everything about you. Remember, it is nearly part of you. So every detail it knows. So that Karin is what disturbs the people that have remained by giving them dreams and giving them some orders. So it's important that you simply hold. Even the exception that the doctor has provided about looking for the property of a person, we don't permit it because it is an order from this dead person. No, we permit it because of the responsibility attached to keeping people's right. Because once you have someone's right and it is not given to them, it becomes some form of dhulm. So because of the other very negative effect that comes out of the dhulm associated with not delivering the right of another person, we try to follow through just for purposes of preventing the other negative part. Otherwise, primarily, we don't have any orders we take from those dreams. So you simply say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, and continue. Otherwise, shaitan can begin from there. Today, he tells you to do something right. Even next week, by next month, he is beginning to order you to do shirk. And it becomes a problem to you. Assalamu alaikum.
What will happen when this dream, whoever is in the dream is telling you to kill yourself? Will you kill yourself? Yes. Maybe come and join us. Barakallahu.
Thank you very much. We can now go to a question that shall be answered by Sheikh Ali, which reads, if a friend comes seeking for advice that he married a girl, but due to imbalance in dowry, the girl's parents refused making a nikah, but allowed him to take the girl, and that nikah will be done after dowry has been cleared. What should he do?
I want us to get the answer from the question. Yeah, because there is a problem with the question that we really have to rectify. It will only take a minute, actually. Please just go slowly, word by word. Yes.
If a friend comes seeking for advice that he married a girl,
He married?
Yes, he married a girl, but due to balance in dowry, the girl's parents refused making nikah. You see?
Okay, pause there. He married due to the balance of the dowry. They refused to make nikah. So the question is, what marriage are they talking about? You get the point now? In first place, there is no marriage there. We are together now. So we are addressing something of two people without marriage, because if there is no nikah, then there is no marriage.
The girl's parents refused making nikah, but allowed him to take the girl, and nikah will be done after dowry clearance. What should he do?
Now, have you understood the question? I'm understanding three things. The first one is, there is no marriage in first place, because nikah was not done for a reason. The dowry, there is the balance in dowry. Secondly, the parents consented to this daughter of theirs to go with this man. Now it is also sensitive in a way that if at all the guardian now has allowed this daughter to go in, nikah is already in the way now. The father has accepted, and probably there are no witnesses. If at all they are there, it is just an imaginary question, if I'm to say. But let's appreciate the three facts. One, I've sensed the fact that the parents are money-minded and they are ready to exhaust their daughter for a reality that probably you've not met the dowry standards. And this is what is happening. Some local parents are very fine with their girl being with some man out there in an irresponsible way. Reason being, they still pressurize and they're like, if you're ready, then you will think of us. And then they will give birth to 1 kid, 2 kids, 3, or maybe 4. Even death is there. Maybe even they will die before even getting officially married. So the Islamic guidance is just too explicit There is no man that is allowed to be with a girl, any lady, not until the marriage contract is made. And we all know the pillars of a marriage contract. We need the permission of the guardian, that's one. We need 2 witnesses, that's 2. We need the ijab and qabul, the offer and acceptance of whatever is going to happen. And then lastly, probably the religious person to guide you on the whereabouts of this. And the dowry is also a pillar of the marriage contract. So all you have to do, if at all you want to get in marriage, you have to respect all those pillars, and that's when you're considered a married person. With the issue of dowry, Islam has it that you can marry a lady and partially give in the dowry, and then the balance will be met at the date you've agreed on with the witnesses, of course. So if you choose to try it like that, you're like, okay, we are going to do nikah, but at least there is a writing that out of the 1 million of dowry, you're giving her 500K. The balance of 500K, you're going to give it to her in a month. It is also respected, but you still go in with marriage. So if at all it is something to do with dowry, yes, dowry is actually a financial right of a wife that is not supposed to be influenced by even the parents. Now these other gifts are also to the parents, and there is no way you're going to call it off, because you have to also make them happy. They're giving you a daughter. So we have to draw a line between the 2 realities. Islam guided the whole dowry story, and I just don't want to be detailed in a way, but I wanted us to at least rectify the question, because the answer was even there in the question. And then lastly, it is very possible that Allah might predetermine for you to have stubborn parents-in-law. True or false? Maybe you're ready to marry this girl, everything is on point, and then the father will tell you, do you have a house? I want you to buy for me a house. I want you to buy for me a car. I want you to do this. If at all you don't do that, I'm not giving you my daughter. It is very simple. Probably that is not your level. These girls are very many. We have very many tribes in Uganda. We have very many, they're just very many. So if you decide to stick, and the reality, the bad reality is, people tend to play around with marriage and forget the aftermath of marriage. Do you know how many young youths here that are married to women and they have no discipline to going and paying courtesy visits in those homes? Is it true or false? It's because the last memory they have is this man invested 50 millions in eating and drinking and dancing, yet he doesn't even own a business. And after a week, after a year, you're the same person who was invested the 50 million in, you're trying to stress him. It is pretty obvious that whenever you're going to stress him, he's going to be like, this is the same human being that is a reason as to why I'm still poor till today. If you make mention that, when are you visiting my father? When are you visiting my mother? They have taken long without you paying a visit to them. It is just obvious. They won't let you know. But it's because it is a bad memory they are having with that. So it's because probably we are just too money-minded in that way that we are only thinking of this marriage issue into a 1 hour, 5 hours session, forgetting there is life after marriage. These are families coming together. You're now having some other parents, musahara now. The parents of your wife are now your parents. You pay visits to them, you call them, you relate with them. How are you going to relate when you're now starting having these clashes, even before marriage, or maybe through to marriage? So I think it's a sensitive situation, only that whoever asked it probably had issues with phrasing the question. But I think probably when you're trying to find the guidance, you shouldn't go around into different fields like that. There is the how to marry, there is now the dowry aspect. These are all broad aspects now that you can't digest in only 5 or maybe 7 minutes. However, it is a reality that is happening. If you get that family that is just too unserious to that level, it might even be a red flag. Allah is busy giving you this information, you're ignoring it. Are you expecting Jibril to come to you to let you know that, please, this is not a good family because this father is now, he wants a house and you don't have a house, wants a car and you don't have a car as a person, please? Jibril is not going to come. These are all flags for you to consider. If at all you're to decide, you consider in the no having this on plate. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us guidance to the best. Barakallahu fikum.
Just one small addition. Sometimes the young men make mistakes by going into these marriage negotiations alone without any seriously mature escort like Mzee Kabari here. Now, don't go and face parents alone, because in some cases, they will do to you what we usually do when you go into a shop and you don't have money. What do? You ask for what is not there, so that you don't walk away ashamed. You ask for the non-existing, meaning if this man sees you are some lousy boy from university, he's not really comfortable with you. He will ask what you don't have as a way of chasing you away. So he's not directly saying genda sagara, but he asks for a Mitsubishi Fuso. He's sure even if the entire clan comes together, they can't get that Fuso now. So he's sure you're not going to come back. So the principle is go with some mature people. But of course, you should also be a person that can be presented to others, because Mzee Kawali is not going to escort some lousy-looking young man who does not have a proper history. He can escort these young men of Dawa and the others, whom he is sure at least if he can stake his name. Then when he's talking to his fellow elder, he's talking to him saying, Munang, this young man has been brave enough in this spoiled world of today to come and say, please permit me. Respect that bravery and the sincerity involved. So the big man will think a bit about the maturity of the person saying, and they can permit. Otherwise, if you go into those negotiations alone, you are going to have some rough time there. Now,
maybe lastly, on the same question, we have seen so many things happening these days. People get married, after 2 months, they separate, and then the man starts, I'm coming for my property that I brought. When you get married, the pillars, Brother Blafo has mentioned, those ones, the pillars must be fulfilled. Once you fulfill them, then the wife becomes yours. But these gifts that you gave to the parents, please don't be attracted by these people who just come on Bouquet Day and other media to say, I want this and that. You gave in the gifts to the parents willingly. The gifts, you don't have to ask for them. No one asked you to take them there. Right? Even if they asked you and you accepted, those ones were for the parents. If you are separating with your dear one, or the one who was dear to you by that time, it is only mahar that can be given to you. I hope you saw a lady who separated with the man and they quarreled and so on. But alhamdulillah, at the end, it was mahar of 500,000, which was given to the man. And the man, the vehicle, and he gave in to that. Let us not follow what others are doing because we have seen them doing it. Muslims, you are supposed to follow your Quran, your Hadith, your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
All these questions. Yet, some questions that fall in the same category have very small differences, so small distinctions. So we can end up answering only one category, yet we could have exhausted the others. That is my view. The question goes, why does Allah always use the pronoun we or us in the Quran? This has been one of the challenging questions that Christians ask us when trying to justify their Trinity.
Anyway, that question is a good question. But from a linguistic part of it and the reality, I've never had a man who is respectable saying me or I. If President Museveni signs, he will say we. All right? And the Kabaka, all Kabakas, they say we. It is a way of respecting themselves from a linguistic part of it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a right to use any pronoun that he wants. But when he says we, doesn't mean that he has other gods with him. Allah is alone, and inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr, for example, we revealed. When he says we, is lillahi al-mathalul a'la, from all these others, is a way of respecting himself. Wallahu a'lam.
Just a small logical addition. Now, let's imagine, just for argument's sake, that there are actually many. So according to that assessment of that individual that is pinning the Muslim, he's saying, Allah, when he said we, it means there are many others. So he feared to only present himself, so he talked to us about the others in we. Now, how about all these ayat about la ilaha illallah, la ilaha, so many of them, the Quran is just full of them. So these others that you are claiming that he was representing when he was saying we, how are they feeling about these other very many verses that where he's making himself alone? So it does not make any logical meaning that the Quran is full of all these individualized statements where Allah is presenting himself as one, and these few already well-known linguistic elements, because all the languages in the world have that way of presenting oneself in the form of a plural. Even, in fact, in some cases, you don't even need to be talking of it in the form of respecting yourself. For example, in the Ganda culture, if you are moving away from a person, you will say katukomeo. So you don't say kankomeo. In most cases, we say it in plural. Or even when you are greeting, you say mujebale. You don't usually say jebale as an individual. You tend to give a plural as a way of attaching weight. So the languages are all conversant with that issue of presenting plural, but in actual sense meaning as singularity.
Barakallahu fikum. I'm just blessed to have these panels today, because They are answering questions in a very good way and using very little time. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and the question is done. And we can now go to question 9 that will be answered by Sheikh Ali, which reads, if you happen to miss a prayer like Dhuhr and want to pray it during Asr, do you start with the missed prayer or you start with the Asr prayer?
Now there is also a problem with this question now. But of course, let us first rectify the problem and then we answer it. If you missed Dhuhr and then you want to pray it with Asr, so there is a wanting aspect. You've already missed it and you're keeping yourself busy, wanting to perform it together with Asr, something that isn't right. Islam attached much importance on prayer. It is the only difference between us and whoever is not a Muslim. And that's why the consensus of the scholars is, if a Muslim deliberately opposes prayer, it might be a ticket for them outside Islam. So literally, there is no way you're going to be a Muslim unless you are at least performing the 5 daily prayers. There is a lot of emphasis on that. But even after that being emphasized, there is also another level of understanding that is there is a lot of importance that was attached onto performing prayers in their prescribed time. One day, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrates to us that he asked the Prophet, Ayyul amal ahabbu ila Allah? What is the best, the most loved deed to Allah? And then Prophet was like, as-salatu fi waqtiha, performing prayers, any prayer within its prescribed time. So you will get to understand that Islam respected this as a reality, and it was like, if at all you're going to perform prayers, please always remember to consider performing these prayers within the prescribed time. However, we must also know the difference before I get to the point. With the Islamic jurisprudence, we have 3 terms. The first one is al-ada, the second one is al-qada, and the third one is al-i'ada. With the first one, al-ada is literally performing, in the sense of the prayer, performing the prayer in its prescribed time. We are like in Arabic, ad-daita. You've performed the prayer in its prescribed time. The second term is al-qada. So al-qada basically means you have not performed this prayer in its prescribed time, but you have considered performing it in some other time that isn't the time that was prescribed for it. If it is dhuhr, probably you've missed dhuhr, and then the time of dhuhr has elapsed, and then you're going to perform dhuhr in the time that is not for dhuhr. We don't call that ada in fiqh, usul fiqh. We call it al-qada because you're basically just paying off something you were not able to do in its prescribed time. And then lastly, we have i'ada. I'ada basically means repeating the same act of worship in the same prescribed period of time. Let's take an example. You've performed dhuhr and then realized that something is wrong with the dhuhr you've performed. And then you're going to perform another dhuhr in the same time of dhuhr. We call that i'ada. You're repeating the salah, the prayer, because of a reason, of course. So if at all you get to understand all those dynamics, at least you will get to know that Islam attaches a lot of respect and importance onto a Muslim performing a prayer within its prescribed time. So this is a scenario where the question, the one who is asking is like, dhuhr has passed on, and then it is now time for Asr. So what prayer is he or she supposed to begin with in line with praying? Is he allowed, is he supposed to start with Dhuhr? Because Dhuhr is now the first prayer, because after all, even Allah in the Holy Quran was like, Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. All these prayers are having their own particular specific time that we are supposed to respect as we are trying to perform them. So are you going to perform Dhuhr, or you're going to perform Asr first before switching to Dhuhr? This is why I like jurisprudence, fiqh in particular. Scholars analyzed that scenario in ways, but trying to consider the time as a priority. They were like, if at all you happen to get to know that you missed Dhuhr and it's now time for Asr, and the Asr is now actually having left with a few minutes for Asr time to get off, they are like, in that particular scenario, you're supposed to first perform Asr prayer to make sure you're performing Asr in its own particular time. After all, you already missed Dhuhr in its time, and you will perform Dhuhr afterwards, for you not to perform the two prayers in the times that are not allocated for them. Are we together in that? So in that first scenario, if at all you happen to remember and you're like, it's 2 minutes to the end of Asr time, and then you still have a burden of Dhuhr and Asr, scholars were like, you would prefer, if at all you're like respecting the time of Asr, perform Asr in its own time. After all, you already missed Dhuhr. It will not make any point. It's the same point. Even when you decide to begin with Dhuhr, it will not be considered al-ada. It will consider to be al-qada. You're just paying off this prayer that you missed. Now, in that scenario, you begin with Dhuhr. The second scenario, it is very possible for Asr time to be like, it's still diverse and a lot. Probably you still have an hour to the end of Asr time. In this situation, the scholars were like, someone who is going to perform this prayer will now consider praying Dhuhr first, because after all, Asr is still having some time, because Allah put some respect in praying these prayers in their rightful order. And then you will be like, you're going to perform Dhuhr. After all, you still have a lot of time with Asr. And after performing Dhuhr, then you consider performing Asr in its prescribed time. I think you've understood the dynamics now. It might not be a black and white story, but it's a situation that is going to need your mind concentrated into getting to what you're going to do in particular, in different scenarios respectively, just like we've tried to explain. But always remember that, please, it is not a nice habit for a Muslim to keep missing out prayers like that. At least miss out a prayer as a result of a natural cause. But don't miss out a prayer as a result of your laziness. It's not an attribute for believers. Yeah, if at all the time is for prayer, pause whatever you're doing, go in and perform prayers, and then you won't be actually pinned for delaying it. If at all you delay it without a reason, it is a sin in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, probably you're in class and they're praying. You pause, come and pray and go back and resume class. Because if at all you happen to miss a prayer without no credible reason Islamic law respects, then you're considered as someone who is having a sin. You have to repent from it, and then Allah will definitely forgive you. Allahu a'lam bis-sawab.
Maybe the one who asked that question, he asked it from the madhhab point of it, where Imam Shafi'i, or the madhhab of Imam Shafi'i, is talking about tartib. tartib, that is, praying all the 5 prayers in order. But the way he has explained it, that's the way the jurists do, right? If there is time for both prayers, we say Dhuhr and Asr, and here in Uganda it is at 4 o'clock. You have come to pray Dhuhr and Asr. There you can start with Dhuhr and end with Asr. But if you have a chance of praying both of them at the end of the Asr time, remember Dhuhr has already gone, Asr is still on. If you delay it also, you are going to sin twice. If you do not have a legal accepted reason, you are going to sin it twice. Therefore, start with Asri as he has explained it very well. Allahu A'lam.
Well, thank you very much. We shall have the last 2 questions from each tutor. So this question goes to Dr. Sulait Kavali. It has 2 scenarios. It says, what is the Islamic ruling having 2 jamas in one mosque? Like at campus here, immediately after a prayer like this, another jama begins at the back of the mosque. And also, what is the Islamic ruling on combining 2 prayers when it rains? For example, Isha and Maghrib, like it is done here at campus most of the times.
Yes.
Yeah. There is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam which has been interpreted in different ways. That hadith was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu who came and he found that the Jama'ah had already been performed. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in a way of sympathizing with Abu Bakr, when Abu Bakr wanted to pray alone, he asked the companions who can make sadaqah for Abu Bakr and pray with him. That hadith has been, mashallah, read in different angles and explained and interpreted the way people want. But to me, I want to bring in a hadith that all of us, I believe, we know. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Salatul Jama'a khayrun min Salatil Faddi bi 27 daraja or bi 25 daraja. That Salatul Jama'a is better than the Salah prayed alone, and it is above it by 27 levels. That hadith is general. It is general. I know there was a year here in Uganda when one of the mosques in Kampala was so tough on people saying Jama after Jama. And it reached to an extent of some people came and did not know what is going on in that mosque. They started praying. These people who were always very tough on praying the second Jama, they went and started caning them. Caning them when they were in Salah. And I know one over there who said, Wallahi, I will never enter that mosque again. All right? But it came as a result of interpretation of hadith. Some ulama say, no, it is not allowed. Others say it is allowed. All right? But of course, there are reasons given. When you come and the Jama'ah has been finished, and the Imam or the mosque has an Imam, and that Imam, maybe some people, all right, want to overtake him, but they just hide in other things. I know where some of the youth, they hate praying behind some old people. What they do? They wait outside until the first Jama is being finished, and then they come and pray. That one, such a Jama brings fitna in the mosque, and that is not allowed. And the Imam has a right of saying, no praying of second Jama here. But if it is like this mosque where we are now, and no Imam that is being stubborn, is stubborn or being offended by seeing others praying the Jama after the first one, there is no problem. But what is important, please, we must be very careful. Sometimes it happens here. There is a Jama that is going on here, another Jama is going on there, and another one is there. That one is not allowed. That one is not allowed to have 2, 3 Jamas in one mosque at the same time. You must finish, the first one must get finished, and you pray the second one. There is no harm in that one. But if it causes fitna in the masjid, like the example I have given you, then you better pray alone and not make another Jama. Wallahu a'lam.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry, there was another part of joining Salahs together. It is Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that sometimes he joined when there was a reason of joining them. For example, the rain may be raining, and coming back for the people becomes very difficult. There is no harm in joining the 2 salahs, but we must know if we are joining Maghrib and Isha, we pray Maghrib 3 rakats. Then after that we pray Isha 4 rakats. We don't shorten the prayer because of the rain that is coming. And there must be a reason. We cannot exhaust all the reasons, but it is allowed in Islam. And Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said in one of the sayings that Inna Allah yuhibbu an tu'ta rukhasuhu na How does it end? Kama tu'ta fara'iduhu. All right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He gives you chance to, when He gives you chance of benefiting from it, Allah wants you to use it. And He likes it. All right? But some people, they just say, for me, there is no safari in Uganda here, for example, safari. There is no reason of joining. There is no what. It is sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we say it is sunnah, it is optional. If you want, you can do it. If you don't want, and if you don't do it, you are not sinning. All right? What is important? That you pray all the prayers in their right time. Wallahu a'lam.
And actually, homework for everyone here. For the case of Isha and Maghrib, have you tried to analyze the time of each prayer? How long and how short it is? Yeah. Or the only time you have for your prayer is that time, 7 o'clock, now Maghrib, 8 o'clock, now Isha. No, there is guidance for that. There is a lot Islamically that we consider to determine when to pray and when not to pray. That's why today we don't pray Dhuhr at 7 exactly. By 7, Maghrib is already done. You understand? Yeah, so if you get to learn that, you'll get to know that Maghrib has the shortest time. And what will happen when that time is done? What time comes next after that? Isha time. So when you get to understand all those dynamics, you get away from being extreme to being moderate. Allahu a'lam bisawab.
We are sorry time has gone, but just a small comment. Sometimes I see people showing emotions when the imams call for the joining of prayers. Some totally indisciplined ones even raise their voices in the mosque. The swala is an individual issue. So if the person has decided to join, it is nothing of your concern. So if you don't believe in joining, why are you getting angry at the one who is joining? He's joining his swala, he's not joining yours. So the business of showing emotions when others are doing their personal ibadat that you have no concern about is really below the intelligence expected of university community. So take your decision. If you want, join. If you don't want, simply walk peacefully out of the mosque. It is your ibadah, it is your decision.
Barakallahu fikum. The last question shall be dedicated to Sheikh Ali. Is having an evil thought considered a sin in Islam?
But now everyone has evil thoughts. That is what we do best. An evil thought is basically a thought that you're having within you and you're not actually acting upon it. You're not doing anything. You're not saying anything. You're not doing anything in line with that bad thought you're having. So there is this one tradition narrated to us by Abu Huraira that I normally think about, and I'm like, okay, Islam is a religion that respected the emotional intelligence of people, that respected the psychological need of a human being. One day, companions marched to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they made it a point. They were like, Ya Rasulullah, we find it hard. At times we have these bad thoughts within us. Yes, we are not going to say anything. We are not going to do upon them, to put them in reality. But the fact is we have them. Like what evil thought? Probably you have an evil thought of stealing in money. You've not stole. You've not started planning or plotting onto stealing, but you have it as a thought. You want to steal. It is a bad thought. Or maybe you want to do some harm to someone. Or maybe you're envious about someone just at heart. You're not doing anything publicly. You're not putting an action onto it. And you know what the Prophet was like? Prophet asked one question. Hal tajidunahu? Is it a reality that you at the level of fighting your own thoughts, not putting them into actions? And they were like, yes, that's the reality. The Prophet was like, ذَاكَ صَرِيحُ الْإِيمَانِ. That's the clarity of what they call of faith. In other words, if a human being is at the level of maturity, of controlling his or her bad thoughts, not putting an act onto them, not putting a statement onto them, that's not a position for everyone. Because the ideal situation is everyone can decide to have bad thoughts. Actually, the psychologists have it. Everyone has the ability to be bad. You just decide not to be one. Yeah, you can become a thief. It's only one step away from stealing, but you just decide not to steal. So that's the Islamic guidance. And I want to wind with another tradition from Abu Hurairah, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was like, Inna Allah tajawaza an ummati ma haddathat bihi anfusuha. Allah like yatusonyowa. He's not going to hold us accountable onto whatever our souls whisper to us. These are the thoughts now. You have a lot that is running in your mind when you see Imam here right now. He doesn't even know anything probably. But you're thinking a lot about him. Allah knows. Are they positive or negative? But in this case, let's consider they are negatives now. And then Prophet was like, Allah made it a point not to hold you accountable if at all they are still at the level of thoughts. Ma lam ta'amal, the condition is if at all you don't put an act onto those thoughts, aw tatakallam, or you don't put a statement onto them. If you hate me in thoughts, it is very okay. If you abuse me, that's where Islam is going to come in. Don't abuse people. If you hate me as a person, it is okay, you have a right to hate me. But if at all you slap me, that's where Islam comes in. فَنَحْنُ نَحْكُمُ بِالظَّوَاهِرِ. Verdicts are being put onto actions, not onto mere thoughts. Allahu a'lam bisawab. Barakallahu feekum. I think you understand that Islam is a rich religion that actually has every aspect of life. I normally hear people who don't know a lot about Islam posing these bad, unresearched statements saying Islam is not a human, realistic religion. Come on, this is Prophet teaching us psychology now. We have been in psychology here. Allah knows that you can have these bad thoughts, but training you to be in control of them. Because if at all you're in control of them, it's only you that is going to know whatever you're thinking. Yeah? But if at all you put a statement on them, you put an act of them, then you're making it bad, and that's where Islam is going to come to pin you for that. Allahu a'lam bisawab.
Now, although you are not held to account for bad thoughts, those bad thoughts should not be your pastime, meaning you don't spend the entire day making imaginations about yourself with some women the entire day. There it now becomes another issue. Then also, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ijtanibu kathira min adh-dhanni, dhanni is essentially thinking. So Sheikh Buraf is saying you are not accountable, but the ayah is saying, Ijtanibu kathira. So don't overthink with the consolation that you are not being held responsible. If you go into the excess, it becomes negative and it can very easily result into action. So we are only forgiven because the brain is always working. So ultimately you will think of some evil things here and there, but don't turn it into something that occupies you for extended periods. It can have a major psychological effect.
N'ebinyuma bigwa byokya ate bagamba nti n'alimi wagonda ate era nakola ati annyuka. Allow me to invite the Minister to give us closing remarks.